Okay, this is episode 4 of Vino with Vals, and this is me. I'm Sam, the winemaker, and I have these two beautiful, knowledgeable women with me today, and I'll let them introduce themselves. They are...
Hello, welcome back to Vino with Val and Sam, and Valerie.
And I'm Valerie Wood, the second part of the Val.
Tell us about yourself for a second, Val. You guys make wine, right?
We make wine. Our wine is Heartwood Cellars, and we also received our degree at Yavapai College in viticulture and enology. So we're trying to apply our education.
God, you got the jump on us. Neither of us have done any degrees at any college for wine. I've got a degree in English literature, but it's not got a lot to do with wine. Okay, what's on for today, Val?
Well, first, before we get started, I just want to say I'm so happy to have Valerie here with me. And a little secret for some of those out there who don't know, Heartwood Cellars is actually the only other wine label in the state of Arizona that I sometimes cheat on you with, Sam, and pour some of their wine. So this is just a real, I just always want to pinch myself that this is where I've found myself in this industry with such amazing people. I've got two of my favorite winemakers right here with me today, so I'm pretty excited. We are going to be tasting through the Pillsbury Mourvedre 2017 100%. You guys hear me talk about this grape a lot, and now we get to go crazy. And then we're also going to do a little bit of homework. Our jobs are really tough. It's time to check in on Petite Sirah 2017 and see how she's doing in the bottle. And these happen to be, I think, our favorite varietals, right? Me with Mourvedre and you with Petite Sirah. Okay. And it's going to create some fun talking points, I think, because I view these as having a lot of similarities in a lot of ways. But we're going to open up Mourvedre first. So, Valerie, what do you have any special connections to Mourvedre? Ooh, I did a heavy pour for myself.
Oh, what a shame.
Right? Do you have any like warm and fuzzy Mourvedre connections? Anything that you like to pair?
My first knowledge of Mourvedre was at a dinner party, and I didn't even know what it was, and I had them pour me some wine, and then I was drinking it, and I kept tasting it. I thought, what is this? I could not tell what it is. I could not identify which wine this was. But it was interesting. It had a lot of layers to it. It wasn't big and jammy, and it wasn't over spicy or over earthy. And so it was more out of curiosity. And then they said, oh, this is, she pronounced it Mourvedre. And so that was my first introduction to it. So it was fun to try it and not know what it was, and then seek out to say, what is this? What am I drinking?
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's similar for me. I mean, I was presented with it, and at the time, a lot of my wine knowledge has come from coworkers that I've had the pleasure to work behind this bar with. And a previous coworker came with just a ton of knowledge about the history of this grape. So I had overheard this coworker talking so much about the history of it, how the French actually have a saying for it that loosely translates to mean the dog choker or the dog strangler. And some of the reasoning for that is how tannic it can be when you treat it on its own. So here now, Sam Pillsbury releases Mourvedre 2013 for the first vintage on its own in a bottle. And I thought, I'm new, and I go, well, this is going to be really good, or it's going to be strangling. It's going to be so tannic, it's going to just choke us. And it was so pleasantly smooth and enjoyable. And it's something that just made me stop and pause, like what you described. And I love a wine with enough complexity. And you can stop and pause and figure it out. Yeah, absolutely. I can personally go on and on and on about this. So part of these videos are for those who do want to get a little bit extra. And this is stuff I would share in a flight in the tasting room too, is that this grape, it originates in Spain, and I talk about this because you'll see it in the state of Arizona as Monastrell. There's a few folks growing Monastrell also in Arizona. The Australian name of it is Matara. I don't expect everyone to remember that. And it's got multiple other names, but the French, when they first started working with it, they must have just been overdoing it or something, We don't know. It was centuries ago, but they came up with that nickname. And essentially what they had was these containers of fluid that were not drinkable. They were so tannic. So that's where it became known as a blending grape. You see this in what we call GSMs or Côtes du Rhône, which we talk a lot about because that's what we love to do here in Arizona. The French would call it Mourvedre and leave off those last consonants, right? But you will not find this in the majority of the country that first started processing it in its 100% pure varietal form. They still today blend it, and they are not allowed to put more than 35% into a blend. So it's a treat to experiment out here. Time for the taste.
I love the hint of spiciness on that.
Yes.
And it really fills my mouth, my whole mouth.
It's not as earthy as I wanted it to be when I chose this clone and planted it. And so of all the grapes, all the 12 varieties we got, it's the one was still kind of finding the secret spot for it. I think we're getting closer and closer because it's not as earthy as I wanted, but it's also more spicy and delicate. And to try to bring that out, I think would be really cool if we can get it to really sing.
It is. I brought some cheeses, and I thought that we could try them with the different wines. We don't need a lot, just a little bit. The first one's kind of like an apple walnut. It's a mild cheddar with a little bit of an apple walnut. And then the second one is an Earl Grey. And then the last one is espresso with a little bit of coffee. And so as I was tasting these the other night, you'll see how they change.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I just took the tiniest nibble of the espresso rind.
Yeah, you went for that one, didn't you?
I did. I remember that. I normally don't eat cheeses, but I just took a tiny nibble just to see how it changes this flavor, because that is the exciting part, is how these change, how they open up. And I got to say, I agree with you, Sam. This is not the earthiest Mourvedre that we've had, but I love the complexity of it. And I got to say, I've kind of put the 2017 Mourvedre off to the side for a bit and ignored it and let it do some more time in the bottle because I've just been sort of over the moon surprised with our single varietal Grenache this year. But now that it's had this extra time, it's really opened up and it's very different. It gives me like almost herbal qualities in some senses going on, and that's something I usually expect from Mourvedre. A little bit more earth and herb than so much berry and dark cherry notes that we get in a lot of reds.
What'd you get when you tasted it with the espresso?
Just kind of it did give a little bit more of like a cacao chocolatey effect to it, didn't it? It pulled out the berry notes that I was just saying I don't normally get from it. So
it really does pull out the berry notes and a little bit of that cacao. It's a great description.
So what got you into wine, Valerie? I'm just curious. I've never asked you this question, I don't think. And
I don't know if we ever did talk about it, but Daniel and we decided to make a life change. We left the corporate environment, and we knew we wanted to live in the Verde Valley. We had been visiting it for many, many years. What we didn't know is what we were going to do. And when we left the corporate environment, it was one of those metaphors, observe the masses and do the opposite. And it was in 2009 when a lot of people were losing their jobs. And I still had my job. I was working in Japan, but I was going to be moving back to Chicago with the company. And it was like, this is a good time to make the change. So we moved here in 2009. We purchased a house in 2003. And in 2009, massive foreclosures. People were losing their jobs. And we would go to our tasting rooms and imagine what would we do. And one of the things we realized was that while many aspects of the economy were suffering, wine industry did not seem to be suffering as much, right?
That's because people drink wine when the economy's in trouble.
When you're stressed out, right? I mean, wine helps.
Yes.
I'm just kidding. So,
one of the economical, evaluators, I guess, as what still survives in a bad economy could be more sustainable industry.
Sure.
So we thought, maybe we should learn more about wine. Now, neither one of us were really wine drinkers.
Yeah.
So we thought maybe we should learn about wine. And we learned that the college had just started a program in viticulture and enology at Yavapai College. So we thought maybe we'll just sign up for some classes. Well, I think it was Christmas. Daniel comes out of the office and says, I just signed up for 5 classes. And I'm like, holy crap. That means I'm going to have to, because we're not doing this separate.
Right.
The whole idea is we're going to do this together. Whatever it is, we're going to do together.
Yeah.
So we started those 5 classes, and we did not stop. We stopped once to go to Portugal with
Oh, hey. On the cruise.
The Douro River, one of the nicest cruises we've ever had.
Yes.
And that's when my son Luke challenged your husband to a chess match, wasn't it?
Well, it was your other son.
It was Asher.
I'm sorry, Asher. I mean Asher.
Yeah. You gotta give Asher due credit.
I get my 3 kids' names mixed up all the time.
It was
They hate
Asher.
it. Yeah, it was
Yes,
Asher.
he did.
Yeah.
But we took a semester off school to go to Portugal because we wanted to learn how to make port.
Yeah.
And so it took us 2.5 years, I think, to receive our degree. And then it was like, okay, now one of the last semesters was to put together a business plan. And since we were in the same class together, we had to come up with different business plans. But we asked the instructor, can we have the same business, but we approach it in 2 different ways? Can we develop a business plan that way? And he's like, I'd love to see it. So that's what we did. And then afterwards, we're like, maybe we could do this.
Nice.
Maybe we could.
That's so funny. It's the exact opposite way I came to it. I just came to it because I love wine. I was a complete naive, with absolutely no idea of how to pull it off as a business, although I had made movies for a lot of time, so I knew how to do something really complicated and expensive, but it's been a very funny, almost opposite way of going to it. Are you guys finished with this?
Just about.
Any more notes on it before we get on to the Petite Sirah?
It just, it's gorgeous. I'm in heaven, and I just got a little starstruck listening to both of the folks that I just admire how you each approach wine, and I think that it's of quality, and it's some of the things that I enjoy the most. So this is just this is a really special episode to me, near and dear. So thanks for letting us kind of.
One of the reasons I was keen on the Heartwood Cellars wines and Valerie coming is because I sell them grapes like Mourvedre and Petite Sirah, and when I taste the wines, I'm expecting to get what I call the kind of obvious interpretation, which is you get the stuff as ripe as you can, and you make it as rich and chewy as possible. And you went the exact opposite direction, which is where my heart lies. And I'm really impressed with the quality of the wines you guys have made.
Thank you. Well, we focus on reds. Why? Because that's what we love. And I personally feel just naturally my palate is more tuned to reds. And so I was delighted when you said we're doing Mourvedre and Petite Sirah.
Yes.
I'm in.
Yes.
Not that I wouldn't have been in for the others, because it's always good to keep, you taste the whites as well.
And hey, we all drink wine in different circumstances for different reasons with a different expectation. And that's what these things are all about. That's what I'm really missing, talking about wine with people in a tasting room setting and having those organic conversations.
Because of the pandemic.
It's closed. And so this is really neat to just kind of hear these things. So, we definitely all go into it with a different set of expectations, I guess you could say. All right. We're going to move on to Petite Sirah. Oh, my goodness.
Now, one of the things I love about this one, you can spot Petite Sirah from miles away because of all the wines that we make. This is the only one that's actually gone from red to purple.
It does.
Look at the rim. I remember those lines from Keats, An Ode to a Nightingale, with purple bubbles winking at the brim and purple stained mouth, that I might drink and leave the world unseen.
Hey, thank you, Sam.
Wow.
So poetic.
Yes,
this guy's got quite the resume. He taught Shakespeare, this Sam Pillsbury of ours.
At Wellington University.
Yeah.
At
That's
Victoria.
my friend, you guys. I love you.
I believe it. I believe it.
Petite Sirah.
Mhm.
Nothing petite about it by an
Nothing.
English translation. Petite in French means son of or child of.
Yeah.
So whenever you see that in front of a varietal name, it means that they've played with genetics. They took the parent grape Syrah, in this case crossed it with a rare grape came outside of the Rhone Valley called Pelorsin, and made a son of, an offspring, so Petite Sirah. And a lot of countries call it Durif, after the last name of the gentleman who discovered that cross-pollinization.
Yeah, a lot of people think it's called that because the berries are smaller than Syrah berries,
Yes.
but they're actually, I mean, if they are, it's micro. They're very pretty,
Yeah.
they're both tiny. No, it just means child of Syrah. Okay.
While she's sipping on that, I have a white napkin and just kind of looking at the color, as Sam was formerly sharing about the color, kind of a purple, deep, inky color. And it's one of those wines that will cling to your teeth, too.
Definitely. Absolutely.
You know, it's funny that I find the Petite Sirah is quite hard to pair with food because it's so intense. And what we quite often do with it is I actually pair it with a chocolate mousse dessert. And even though it's a bone dry red, and it'll stand up to that sugar and that intensity of chocolate really well. It really works.
That's my favorite. If I've ever been involved in helping decide a pairing, you know, at a dinner that we've done, if you've got a flourless chocolate cake with some fresh raspberries that you could put on top, really dense, rich flavors, it's my personal favorite. What is it that makes this your favorite, Valerie? The Petite Sirah in particular.
Well, I admit the color is very alluring.
Yeah, it's attractive.
I like a
right?
deep red wine. And it's got a little purple hint, so it's not totally black.
Right.
But I think it's first the color that, teased me in.
Talk about the nose, though.
And then it's like this very, I say it's blueberry / blackberry, but it kind of depends on which wine I'm drinking.
Do you get a bit of chocolate?
I get a hint of chocolate. I just had a little bit of this espresso cheese with it, and it just really popped the chocolate in it.
See, and I'm getting a tiny bit of like anise or fennel, kind of that licorice kind of note.
I think I get the fennel as well.
As it's opened especially. And again, a wine that will change, that will give you a different set of nuances and aroma when you go back to it, or after you've had a taste and a bite and you go back to it and it opens and changes. There's just nothing like that. You know, we like our wine like we like our music with multiple notes, right? Because one note would just be so boring. Think about a song with one note. You know, we don't want our wines like that either. So yeah, that's what's exciting to me about it. And this is not as deep and intense as I would expect.
That's because I deliberately pick it earlier every year, and we've gone from 15.5% to 14.5 to 14 to 13.3, and in this 2017 it's 13%. And what happens is, big is easy. You just let the fruit hang on the vine as long as the sun keeps shining. We're trying to go for complexity and nuance and some delicacy and the ability to have it not just completely jam up your palate. And you know, those big ripe jammy Petite Sirahs are really fun to drink, but you can't eat anything with them. And I'm a kind of foodie, so I like to make this to go with food. And I think this one really works. And didn't this get a gold?
Well, this one has not. You know what?
I think it's got a gold in the Chronicle.
It did. You're absolutely
Now,
correct.
that's
on
another
that.
thing that surprises me. You send a 13% Petite Sirah off to California and expect to get laughed out of town, and you wind up getting a gold in the biggest, toughest wine competition in the country. Guess what's happening, folks? Things are changing.
Love it.
Yes.
Well, what a good celebration of these grapes. And before we kind of like come to a wrap up, what I was excited to talk about a little bit of similarity. It's really just visually on the vine itself. If you were to look at clusters of Mourvedre and clusters of Petite Sirah, they're very similar in their color. They're very similar in how tightly packed they can be. Petite Sirah does have a smaller berry, if you will.
But it's got a much bigger, fatter cluster, and and they're very risky because in a place where you deal with monsoon rains, they have these big, fat, jammed together clusters, so they're much slower to dry out, and they're much quicker to rot. So we're super vigilant on our Petite Sirah blocks, and we don't let them get away with anything. Now I've got a little surprise here for you, Valerie. You don't know what this is, and you didn't know that this was coming, but I want you to have a look at it.
I know what it is right now, though. You brought me one of these. What? Yes. Okay, you guys, here's the story on this sucker. I know what it is. Okay, so this babe has been sitting in a barrel for over 2 years.
It still is. I just sucked that out of the barrel 2 days ago.
And this is going to be our first, and it's got the infatuated Lou. I could cry to see it. This is so cool. Thank you, Sam. This is Petite Sirah that ended up getting picked late, essentially. And so it had a much higher sugar content, left us with residual sugar, and is going to be our first dessert wine style red that Pillsbury's ever bottled. And
We'll open it up.
okay.
And
I've got one somewhere.
I'll tell the story about this. Hold on, I'm going to find a corkscrew. I can't
Here,
find it.
you tell the story. I'm finding a corkscrew.
Okay, so what it is my vineyard manager died suddenly. He had an anaphylactic reaction to bees, and I was left managing the whole vineyard on my own. And I overlooked this one block of Petite Sirah. When we finally came to it, it was so ripe. I just thought, I don't know what we're going to do with it. We'll pick it anyway. Well, what happens is, like our sweet white dessert wine, Sweet Lies, Symphony Sweet Lies, it's not chaptalized or fortified. It's not had sugar or alcohol added to it. It was just picked super ripe and then fermented till the yeast ran out of juice and left a bit of sugar. So it's not a super sweet one. So it's kind of not really even a dessert wine. It's somewhere in between. It's definitely not like a port. Do you guys want another glass here?
Yeah.
Here you go. It's a one-man camera crew here.
Yes.
Thank you, Sam.
So have a look.
It's just so cool to see it bottled. I'm emotional right now. I've tried this in the barrel several times and seen how it's. Oh, look at that color!
I thought I'd enjoy this, and I thought this would be cool to do with Valerie Wood here too, because of her dealings with petite, and also her dealings with more like dessert or port style petites too.
Yes. What a treat! Here you go, my friend. Oh.
And we have some of your Petite Sirah grapes that are going to be a
port, right?
Port.
You're making a port out of it. I'm excited to see what that's like.
Oh, look at that. That color.
It's crazy. It's almost black, isn't it?
See, that just makes my mouth water.
Right? Yeah, look at the difference in the colors.
There. It's got a very thin peripheral now because there's so much dark juice in there.
Let's get a little shot of the difference here between.
Oh, good idea.
So
put the glasses closer together.
Here we go.
So see how the Petite Sirah is on the left, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got a slightly wider peripheral rim. There's a name for that, a meniscus, I think. Mm-hmm. And the one on the right is a little bit more intense, and the wine's a little bit darker. Yeah. Well, give it a taste.
Do you have an idea of the alcohol?
Oh yeah, it's on the label.
It is sitting at. We're at 15.8.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So not really dessert wine high, but yeah.
But what I was going to suggest or say is that sometimes with the higher alcohol wines, you'll get the alcohol right away on the nose.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and keep swirling.
Same.
Just keep swirling, and it will
open
evaporate.
It'll blow off
the glass.
Also, make sure you cool it down a bit too, because if it's warm, it's really volatile. Yeah.
And at home, when you're getting these young, big, huge reds, you can get yourself a little aerator, or people will think we're crazy. This also came from a previous coworker. This came from Bill Schwab. He told me, you think I'm nuts, but go ahead and put your big, huge, young reds in a blender and pulse it twice and put it back in your decanter. Yeah. No one will even know. If you ever try that, it's fascinating what it does. Just these silly little things you learn along the way.
I'm just loving this nose. It's very blueberry on the nose. Once this. Okay.
That is heaven, Sam. That is just so good on the palate. It's very rich blueberries, rich, not overly sweet. It's just like you've done a little simple syrup or something with those berries. Oh, it's so good.
That's a great description. Simple syrup.
It's just a simple, it's not overdone. It's not a pancake maple syrup or anything.
This is very good.
What's so funny about that is it's yet another example of an accident that turned into a pretty wonderful discovery. Because of all the reds that you couldn't do that with, this is the only one you could probably get away with it, because of the qualities of Petite Sirah.
This is really, really yummy.
Now, can I ask you, because I know there was a couple different things going on, and we all chatted as a Pillsbury team down there a couple times. Do we leave it just the 100% Petite Sirah as is, or do we put a little bit of that symphony
We
also...
tried that. I think you and I were there. I think we just decided we liked it better.
Yeah,
leave
on
it
its
alone.
own.
Don't mess with it. It's fine on its own.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it smelled and tasted like to me. I wasn't getting any, but...
No, this is 100%. This is all
Smells
from...
like a blueberry cobbler.
There we go.
It really does.
Yeah, it does. Now that it's opened up, I was
Like a
getting high
blueberry
alcohol
cobbler.
at first, but...
If you just kind of keep swirling, it'll blow that alcohol off.
Oh, yum.
And I would have liked it a bit cooler, but I just brought it up in my car, so I didn't have
What
time.
a best surprise. Thank you.
That's literally the one label that the printer gave us as an example of what he was going to give us, and one bottle, and I pulled it out of the barrel a few days ago and corked it, and that's what you get. So we were lucky, actually.
I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, Sam. I love you. See, these surprises. We get to try it together for the first time. Yeah, girl.
Do you want to try it
With a little chocolate.
Bit of chocolate. What a good idea.
Let's see.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get my own
Yes.
my own little taste of
Please
this,
do.
too.
I love these little, I don't know, if you guys are looking for a good dark chocolate
I've had these at your at the last pouring that
at
you
our
did.
events, we have these. These are so good. They're creamy.
Yeah.
And
Little Godivas.
they're in the shape of a heart.
And I was just going to say, and they're heart-shaped.
Go Heartwood Cellars.
Yes.
Hey, quickly show us a couple of your bottles. Go on, put them in here. We'll see if we can fit them in. This wine needs to be a bit cooler. It's a bit
You're
warm.
right, it does.
It's
but
a bit
still
warm, but
very good.
there we go. These are really
Thank
fine
you.
wine, you guys, and some of them are made with Pillsbury fruit too.
Some of them are, yes.
And, when I pour for folks, I pour double golds. And so I have to say this Petite Sirah here from Valerie Wood of Heartwood Cellars got a double gold in the San Francisco Chronicle.
It did.
And you and Daniel are another example of everything you submitted walked away medaled with this last one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. It's still surreal.
It is. And it's just so exciting for Arizona industry because we come against still, I talk about this a lot, that, people of wine connoisseurs and, expecting what to get from what region, they still kind of poo-poo on Arizona. Well, we're coming on up, guys, and let me tell you, we're tasting the quality and it is there. So
Okay, thanks, guys. We better go. So thanks for coming. Thanks for joining in. What a joy, and I'm so glad I could give you that little surprise.
thank you so much.
Thank you.